Imagine holding a simple quarter in your hand. Just another piece of pocket change, right? But what if I told you that the very coin you casually spent on a morning coffee could be worth a jaw-dropping $100,000 or more? Yes, you heard that right. Some Washington quarters, hiding in plain sight, are now among the most valuable coins in the world, fetching life-changing amounts at auction. We're counting down the most shocking, most unbelievable Washington quarter dollars, each one carrying a secret that could make you a fortune. First up, the 1968 Washington quarter dollar. This coin, although part of a larger series of quarters, has a unique history and a rare twist that makes it stand out. First issued in 1932, the Washington quarter replaced the earlier standing Liberty quarter and has been a staple of U.S. coinage ever since. The 1968 Washington quarter dollar was produced during a transformative time in U.S. history. In the late 1960s, the country was experiencing immense change, socially, politically, and economically. The 1960s saw the civil rights movement in full swing, the Apollo space missions, and significant economic shifts. As such, coins from this era carry a certain weight of history that appeals to collectors today. The 1968 quarter dollar was minted during a time when the U.S. government had begun moving away from the silver standard for most coins, with silver becoming increasingly scarce in circulation. In 1965, the U.S. Mint had transitioned from using 90% silver to a more affordable 40% silver composition for certain coins, and eventually to copper-nickel for most circulating coins. The 1968 Washington quarter was made from a copper-nickel-clad composition, marking a shift in the metallic content of the coins. This coin was struck in large numbers, but over the decades, the wear and tear, as well as the presence of mint errors, have given it a fascinating appeal to collectors. However, this particular 1968 quarter is noted for its damaged mint mark, in black color. This defect is typically caused by either a mishap during the minting process or external interference with the coin after its minting. This damage could result from excessive wear, an improper striking procedure, or even being exposed to external elements like oils, which could turn the mint mark black. This error makes the coin an intriguing piece for collectors. In addition to the damaged mint mark, this quarter is also in a dirty condition. While dirt and grime might devalue a coin under normal circumstances, in this case it adds to the coin's character and rarity. Some collectors are specifically drawn to uncleaned or raw coins, as they hold a certain charm and potential for future cleaning or restoration. The total mintage of the 1968 Washington quarter is a significant factor in its value. In total, approximately 400,001,968 Washington quarters were minted, which might suggest that this coin is not particularly rare. However, the damaged mint mark in black color, along with the dirty condition, changes things entirely. While most 1968 Washington quarters in average circulation or good condition may only fetch a few dollars at most, a coin with such unique characteristics can see auction prices rise significantly. A coin in fine condition or uncirculated could easily range from $56,000, but with the black damaged mint mark and the dirty condition, collectors who specialize in error coins or historically worn items could see a significant interest. Depending on the condition, such a coin could range from $56,000 to several $100s in the right auction market. Collectors who focus on errors and anomalies in coins tend to look for rare minting mistakes. The 1968 Washington quarter with the damaged mint mark is considered a minting error, and it's this error that gives the coin its allure. The black mint mark could be indicative of a flaw in the minting die or damage done during the striking process. Such errors are highly collectible because they are often rare, and most die mistakes are either corrected quickly or fail to make it into regular circulation. In particular, collectors who specialize in U.S. coinage from the 1960s or Washington quarters will likely seek out these types of pieces. Coins like this 1968 quarter also attract interest from those who collect coins with interesting wear or damage. The dirt and wear on the coin give it an authentic feel that many collectors find appealing, as it shows the journey the coin has been on and the history it carries with it. Overall, the combination of historical significance, Rarity due to the mint mark error and the unique characteristics of this coin make it an interesting and valuable find for collectors. Now, let's move on to another fascinating coin, the 1984 Washington quarter dollar. Unlike the 1968 version, this coin was struck in a time of stability for U.S. coinage and features different design and historical context. The 1980s was a significant decade in U.S. history. It marked a time of economic recovery after the 1970s inflation crisis, a time when the United States was rebuilding its economy under President Ronald Reagan. This was also an era when the U.S. Mint was focusing on maintaining the stability of coin designs while introducing new innovations in coin technology. By 1984, the Washington quarter had been in circulation for more than 50 years, and its basic design had remained unchanged. However, the 1984 Washington quarter was minted in large quantities, and like other coins of the era, it was struck with a composition of copper nickel clad over a copper core. The design of the 1984 Washington quarter is, of course, identical to the classic Washington quarter. On the obverse, George Washington's bust is featured, and the reverse shows the eagle, emblematic of America's strength and freedom. This design is well known for its elegance and has become synonymous with U.S. coinage. The presence of the D Mint mark indicates that this particular coin was struck at the Denver Mint. While this coin does not have the significant errors or unique flaws that make the 1968 version so valuable, it does hold interest for a different set of collectors. Its mintage and the specific D Mint mark provide a subtle connection to the Denver Mint's history and its role in producing coins for the U.S. Treasury. Approximately 668,184 Washington quarters were minted, making it a common coin from a mintage perspective. However, the presence of the D Mint mark, which signifies coins struck at the Denver Mint, and the fine circulation condition make it an interesting collector's item for those who specialize in coins from the 1980s. In terms of market value, the 1984 Washington quarter in fine condition generally falls within a modest range of $10,000. While this might seem low for some, certain collectors are willing to pay a premium for coins in good condition or those with unique characteristics, even from such a high mintage year. Coins in uncirculated condition or those with certain die varieties could fetch higher values, ranging from $15,000 at auction, especially if the coin holds historical significance for the collector. Unlike the 1968 Washington quarter, the 1984 version has less in the way of significant minting errors or damaged features, so it relies on the standard appeal of well-maintained, fine-condition examples. Collectors who focus on U.S. coinage from the 1980s, or those who collect specific mints like the Denver Mint, may find this coin an important part of their collection. Additionally, there are collectors who specialize in Washington quarters across all years, including the 1984 issue. For these collectors, the condition of the coin, as well as its mint mark, is crucial, and the 1984 D Mint mark plays an essential role in completing their set. Though the 1984 Washington quarter is relatively common, its value could increase in the future, especially as interest in specific mint marks and time periods grows. Coins from the early 1980s may begin to show increased demand in the coming years as they become rarer in circulation. As a collector's market, it's always exciting to see which coins will gain popularity or become more valuable in the decades to come. Next up, the 1967 Washington quarter dollar. Without a mint mark in very fine condition stands out in the world of numismatics due to its unique characteristics and historical significance. First, let's discuss the historical context of this coin. The Washington quarter, introduced in 1932 to honor the nation's first president, George Washington, was designed by artist John Flanagan. This design has remained on the quarter for over 90 years, with only a few changes made over the decades, most notably during the 50-state quarters program. However, in the case of the 1967 Washington quarter, its significance lies not in its design, but rather in its timing and minting process during a year of substantial national and global change. 1967 marked a pivotal moment in American history as the nation was caught in the middle of the turbulent 1960s. This period was filled with significant cultural and political shifts, including the Civil Rights Movement, the Vietnam War, and the rise of youth counterculture. The coin itself was minted during a time of economic strain, particularly due to inflation and the growing costs of war. In fact, the early 60s saw a steady decrease in the silver content of coins as a result of the nation's economic policies and the rising demand for silver in the global market. By 1965, the U.S. had begun to transition to a clad coinage system, meaning that the Washington quarters, along with dimes, were no longer made entirely of silver. The 1967 Washington quarter, however, retained its silver content before the switch to the clad coins. In terms of mintage numbers, the 1967 Washington quarter without a mint mark had an initial mintage of approximately 1.9 billion. While the coin itself wasn't rare when compared to others with smaller mintage numbers, its unique characteristics and historical backdrop have made it a point of interest for collectors. The coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which is why it lacks a mint mark. This was common for coins struck in Philadelphia, as opposed to those produced in Denver or San Francisco, which bore distinctive mint marks. But what sets this coin apart from others is its condition. While millions of these quarters were minted, most have suffered wear and tear over the decades. Coins that have been preserved in a very fine condition are rarer, and thus command higher market values. Coins in this condition exhibit light wear, but still retain the details of the design clearly visible, making them a coveted piece for collectors. Now, let's talk about the market value of this coin. As of 2023, a Washington quarter from 1967 without a mint mark in very fine condition can fetch around $36,000 depending on the demand in the auction market. But there are instances where certain 1967 quarters, especially those with unique errors, could fetch even higher prices. Coin collectors are particularly fond of errors such as double strikes, die cracks, and even minting flaws that make a coin stand out. For example, a 1967 Washington quarter with a double die error where the design appears twice due to a misalignment in the die could skyrocket in value to well over $100,000, depending on the condition and error severity. However, those are exceedingly rare and are far from the norm for most of these coins. As mentioned earlier, errors can significantly influence the value of a coin. The 1967 Washington quarter, in particular, has been known to feature errors that increase its collector interest. For example, coins with an off-center strike, where the design is misaligned. Now, let's turn our attention to another noteworthy coin, the 1990 Washington quarter dollar with D mint mark in circulation good condition. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint and features the same design that has become a hallmark of the Washington quarter series. The year 1990 was a relatively uneventful year in the grand scheme of American history. However, this coin was minted in an era when the United States was undergoing important changes in its economy and coinage system. By the time the 1990 Washington quarter was released, the U.S. government had already switched to a completely clad coinage system, which had replaced the use of silver in all circulating coins except for the silver proof sets that were sold separately. Therefore, the 1990 quarter, like all post-1965 quarters, is made primarily of copper-nickel with a clad composition, marking a departure from the earlier silver-based quarters. With an estimated mintage of over 1.4 billion pieces, the 1990 Washington quarter was one of the most produced quarters of that decade. These were struck for general circulation and are relatively common in most condition grades. However, as we delve deeper into its market value and design, we'll see that the 1990 Washington quarter with D mint mark has gained value among collectors, particularly those who focus on circulated good condition coins. In circulation good condition, the coin typically falls in the lower end of the value spectrum, generally being worth between $7,000 depending on market conditions. While this may seem low, the coin's significance is not found in its rarity, but in its place within the larger context of the Washington quarter series. Since the 1990 Washington quarter is a part of the modern Washington quarters, it appeals to both casual collectors looking to complete a full set and investors searching for coins from more recent years with potential for growth. The design on the 1990 Washington quarter remains unchanged from the original Flanagan design, which has become iconic in the world of U.S. coinage. The obverse of the coin features George Washington in profile, facing left, while the reverse features the eagle and olive branch. The 1990 quarter has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and weighs 5.67 grams. While the design might seem familiar, the coin's mint mark, a small D on the obverse below Washington's neck, identifies it as having been struck at the Denver Mint. Coins with mint marks from different mints can sometimes see slight variations in their market value due to the distinct production processes at each mint. Though these differences are often subtle, the mint mark can make a coin slightly more desirable depending on the collector's focus. Although the 1990 Washington quarter's general value in circulation good condition is not exceptionally high, collectors do sometimes seek out examples with specific errors or unique characteristics that might boost their value. Errors such as doubled die or off-center strikes are much rarer and can significantly raise the price at auction. Coins with these defects often attract high bids, as collectors enjoy the challenge of finding coins with irregularities. While the 1990 Washington quarter with D mint mark may not have the high-end value of rarer coins, it still offers an interesting look into the modern era of coinage. Coins in good condition are generally affordable, but those with interesting errors could yield higher returns in the auction market. Collectors interested in building a Washington quarter set will likely find this coin a worthwhile addition. And as with all coins, the possibility for market appreciation is always a part of the excitement. Next up, the 1984 Washington quarter dollar is an interesting and often overlooked coin in the history of U.S. numismatics. Despite its relatively modern minting, it has become a favorite among collectors due to an extremely rare and significant error that has surfaced in a small number of these coins: the P mint mark error. To understand the full value of this coin, it's essential to dive into its history, its design, the nature of this error, and how it affects its market value today. The Washington quarter dollar was first introduced in 1932, celebrating the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the quarter features a left-facing profile of George Washington, the first president of the United States, on the obverse. This coin quickly became one of the most iconic representations of Washington's legacy in U.S. coinage. For decades, the Washington quarter remained largely unchanged in terms of design, with only a few notable modifications over time. The 1980s, however, marked a transition period in U.S. coin production, with the government modernizing various aspects of its currency to reflect the growing demands of collectors and the general public. By the time the 1984 Washington quarter was minted, the coin was being produced by the Philadelphia Mint, as well as at other facilities across the country. However, this specific 1984 version took on a more significant role when an error occurred, an error that would send collectors into a frenzy in later years. The 1984 Washington quarter was struck in clad copper nickel. It has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters and a weight of 5.67 grams, following the specifications for standard U.S. quarters. The design itself has remained largely consistent, with George Washington's bust on the obverse, surrounded by the words, "Liberty in God We Trust," and the year 1984. The reverse side features an eagle in flight, the inscription, "United States of America," and the coin's value, quarter dollar. For collectors, the most notable characteristic of this coin is the P mint mark error. The Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use mint marks on coins minted in their facility, accidentally struck a limited number of these coins with a P mint mark. This error occurred due to a mishandling of the minting process, where dies from the Philadelphia Mint were used that typically bore the P mint mark, reserved for coins struck after 1980. The error and its impact on market value. Mint errors are some of the most sought-after features in the coin collecting world. A coin struck with an unexpected or misplaced mint mark is considered highly rare, making the coin much more valuable to collectors. In this case, the 1984 Washington quarter with the P mint mark is highly coveted because it is a significant error, one that should not have occurred in the first place. As such, any coin from the 1984 Washington quarter series with a visible P mint mark is considered a major find, especially for those looking to complete their collection of Washington quarters. In terms of market value, the 1984 Washington quarter with P error mint mark in fine condition can fetch anywhere between $75,000 to $100,000 at auction, depending on its specific condition and the level of collector interest. Coins in better condition, such as a very fine or extremely fine, can see prices soaring to $98,000 or more, while a mint state or gem quality example might reach figures as high as $120,000. The primary reason behind the high value of these coins is the rarity and historical significance of the error. Despite the mint's best efforts to produce a flawless series of quarters, this error has ensured that the 1984 Washington quarter with the P mint mark remains one of the most valuable and sought-after modern coins in the U.S. market. Thanks for joining us. Happy collecting!